When acquiring a business in Vietnam, investors typically face an important legal choice. Should you acquire the company itself or just its assets? These two transaction types are known as capital deals and asset deals. While they may look similar from the outside, they are legally and structurally different. Choosing the right structure affects everything, from tax implications and liability exposure to licensing, employee transition, and contract enforceability. In this video, we break down the legal differences between capital deals and asset deals in Vietnam to help you choose the right strategy for your investment. In a capital deal, the buyer acquires all or a majority of the charter capital or shares of the target company. As a result, the buyer takes control of the legal entity itself. This means the company continues to exist with all of its assets, liabilities, contracts, employees, licenses, and obligations intact. From a legal standpoint, the entity remains the same, it just has a new owner. Capital deals are often faster to implement when the buyer wants to take over the entire operation without restructuring its assets or contracts. In contrast, an asset deal involves acquiring only selected assets of a business. These may include tangible assets such as equipment and property, or intangible assets like intellectual property, contracts, customer lists, and brand rights. In this case, the buyer does not acquire the legal entity. Instead, the buyer sets up a separate company and transfers the selected assets into it. This structure is typically used when the investor wants to avoid assuming the seller's liabilities or when the deal involves only part of the business. One of the key legal differences lies in liability. In a capital deal, the buyer inherits both the assets and liabilities of the target company, including tax obligations, labor disputes, contractual penalties, and regulatory risks. This is why legal due diligence is critical to uncover any hidden risks. In an asset deal, liabilities generally do not transfer unless the buyer explicitly agrees to assume them. This gives the buyer more flexibility to choose which risks to accept or avoid, making asset deals potentially safer in high-risk scenarios. Legal due diligence also differs between the two structures. For capital deals, the due diligence must cover a broader range of areas, including corporate governance, shareholder records, internal approvals, litigation history, employment issues, and environmental compliance. In asset deals, the focus is narrower, primarily on the assets being transferred, including ownership, encumbrances, contract assignability, licensing, and transferability of IP or real estate. Understanding these differences helps buyers allocate resources effectively during the review process. In capital deals, the existing business licenses typically remain valid because the legal entity continues operating. However, if the buyer changes the business scope or structure post-acquisition, additional approvals may be required. In asset deals, new licenses may be required for the buyer's entity to legally operate the business. Some licenses in Vietnam are non-transferable, meaning the buyer must apply for fresh licenses or re-register operations. This makes regulatory review and planning essential, especially in highly regulated sectors like healthcare, education, and logistics. Capital deals generally do not require third-party consent for existing contracts to remain valid, unless the contract has a change of control clause. The legal entity remains unchanged, so contracts continue to bind the same party. In asset deals, contracts must often be assigned or novated to the buyer's new entity. This usually requires consent from the other contracting party. If key contracts are non-transferable, the buyer may need to renegotiate or leave those out of the transaction entirely. This can delay the deal or reduce its value. From a legal perspective, tax treatment also differs. In capital deals, gains on the transfer of shares may be subject to capital gains tax or corporate income tax, depending on the seller's structure and jurisdiction. The company's tax liabilities also stay with the legal entity. In asset deals, value-added tax, transfer tax, or registration fees may apply to the asset transfer itself. Buyers and sellers should consult legal and tax advisors early to plan for these differences and structure the transaction accordingly. In capital deals, employees remain employed by the same legal entity, so their rights and obligations continue without interruption. However, changes in management or compensation structures may require amendments or new agreements. In asset deals, employees are not automatically transferred. The buyer must enter into new employment contracts, and in some cases, obtain employee consent or negotiate separation terms. Legal due diligence should review all employment risks in both scenarios. Capital deals are often more discreet, as they can be negotiated without informing customers or suppliers until closing. Asset deals may require earlier disclosure to third parties if consents are needed. Additionally, capital deals may close faster if the buyer wants to maintain operational continuity, while asset deals can take longer due to the number of transfers, approvals, and renegotiations required. The right choice depends on your business objectives, risk tolerance, and operational strategy. There is no one-size-fits-all answer. Capital deals work well when the buyer wants full control of an established company and is comfortable with existing obligations. Asset deals are better suited for partial acquisitions, carve-outs, or when the buyer wants to avoid legacy risks. Your legal advisors should help you assess the pros and cons based on the target company, industry, and regulatory environment. At LTS Law, we advise foreign investors on both capital and asset deals in Vietnam. We provide strategic legal due diligence, draft transaction documents, assist with licensing, and manage closing procedures. Whether you are acquiring shares or assets, we help you navigate Vietnam's legal landscape with precision, transparency, and speed. Need help choosing between a capital deal and an asset deal in Vietnam? Talk to LTS Law. Visit lts.com.vn to schedule a consultation and learn how we help investors enter the Vietnamese market with legal confidence and clarity.